phasing lines. It sounds difficult, doesn't it? In the main, you don't need to be ever worried about phasing line. However, I'm about to make a video on phasing lines, and I just want you to understand a couple of concepts. So a cable has velocity factor, and I did that video a couple of days ago. So if we want to delay our signal going to an antenna, we can do that using a delay line as part of a phasing harness. So in its most basic terms, if I can find my mouse, a phasing harness is, straightforward. You go in, you split it with a T-piece and some connectors, and you go to two antennas. And if everything is exactly the same length, you get the same energy at each antenna, whether that's a Yagi or whatever. Conceptually. Look in the comments, there'll be some clever people there who'll tell you more about that. If you want to split your signal to two places with the same energy. However, what I want to talk about today is how do we calculate a delay line if we want to use, let's say, the Christman feed system, which is a method of feeding two verticals and delaying the signal to one, not the other. Now, the trouble is when you read this stuff, and when I was fairly new in ham radio, it used to go on, and I found a few articles here. There's a little calculator. I'll go to you in a minute. But I was confused by something called degrees. All right. So, for instance, the Christman method, and we're going to make a dedicated video about this, but the Christman method basically has two verticals, roughly a quarter of a wavelength apart, and we come up to our T-piece, all right, and we add a little bit of extra coax to one of these, which becomes the delay line, and we get more energy going that way. But I'm going to do a detailed analysis of that another day. The problem is this bit here, a lot of people don't understand. So the Christman method, for instance, talks about 70, I think it doesn't matter, but let's say it's 71 degrees. I better check that actually. It does actually, it talks about 71 degrees. So what the hell do we mean by 71 degrees? Okay, so if I've got a shadow on my book here because of this microphone. I wonder if I can move that. So 360 on a sine wave, okay, that's 360 degrees from there to there. So it's 360 degrees. We know from, when we were at school that a quarter of that is going to be 90 degrees. Okay, so if our cable, if it wants 71 degrees of coax in here, but let's say it only wanted 90 degrees, then we know, that's easy. We can multiply it by 0.25 or divide it by 4, get the same answer. And if it was 10 meters, you would end up at 2.5 meters long. But how do we calculate 71? All right, so it's a bit more difficult, or is it? So I'll get my calculator out. Let's drop that down. I've got a few calculators running. Let me move my mixer out of the way. And I think escape cancels it. So take 90 degrees divided by 360. It says 0.25. If you remember, that's the answer we had here. That's right. But if we took 71 degrees divided by 360, we end up with 19.7%. Okay, so for 71, that equals 19.7%. Don't worry if you're not mathematically inclined. You just follow these instructions if you ever wanted to do this. All right, it's nice and simple. 19.7%. So let's say it really is for 7.2 megahertz. And we're after 19.7% of 7.2 megahertz. So what would we do there? Well, that's easy enough. I'm metric, by the way. I suggest you go that way too. 300, which is the speed of light, 300 million kilometers a second, divided by 7.2 million cycles per second, we end up with a wavelength of 41 41.66 meters. So the 7.2 megahertz is the 41.66 meter band. All right, I'll just measure them 41.66. We're after 19.7% of that. So times 0.197. So now that answer is 8.2, that'll do, 8.208, 8.21, 8.2. However, we did a video about velocity factor, and if you've got a coax of, let's say, 73%, we only want 73% of 8.2. So we multiply that by, what did I say, 73%? 0.73, and we end up at, there's our answer, 5.99 meters. So if you've got a 73%, or whatever I said, 70% velocity factor on your cable, and you wanted 71 less the velocity factor 2, it's 5.99. Now, I'll just show you a little thing here, because this looked quite good. I haven't used it, so yeah, we want 7.2. Velocity factor, I said, let's say, I don't know, 0. I think I was doing 73. 70 degree line. Oh, I hit calculate. Oh, here we are. 5.99. Aha! So I got it right. So you can use this calculator here, and I'll put that in the description. And if you've ever made a phasing harness yourself, I'll be very interested in your comments, because I think we should use very high quality coax, known, reliable impedance and velocity factor, batch to batch, and then you'll always get the right thing. If you're using unknown coax, you'll have to use some fancy measuring tools to work out the velocity factor so you can get that number right. But 5.99, it would have worked. I'm actually quite pleased that I got that number, and I'm the same as the calculator. All right, so next video I'm about to do is about a phasing harness and how a 2-element phase array works, what are the benefits, and what's the front to back, all right, as well as what is the gain. All right, so I'll leave you a couple of videos here to be getting on with for the time being. This one is something that YouTube probably thinks you might be interested in, and this one is a playlist, which I've put together, which I hope quite good fun for you. All right, all the best. See you next time. Adios.